Raquel Welch was one of Hollywood's most photographed actresses, yet one film pushed her further than anyone expected. 100 Rifles became a classic, but hidden inside it are scenes that stopped audiences cold. Moments so bold that years later, viewers still argue over how it was ever approved. The industry wasn't ready for what she did in that movie, and even now, people question whether the scene was filmed exactly as it appears. Raquel's controversial side. For years, Raquel Welch was the bombshell Hollywood couldn't stop talking about. The star whose posters covered walls long before her films reached television. But beyond the glamorous reputation, some of her scenes pushed limits in ways people didn't expect. A few were risky, a few were confusing, and one scene in particular was so strange and so bold that more and more people are asking if it could have possibly been real. Raquel Welch was born on September 5, 1940, in Chicago, Illinois. Her father, Armando Carlos Tejada Urquizo, was a Bolivian aeronautical engineer, while her mother, Josephine Sarah Hall, came from English heritage. This combination gave Raquel a striking look that stood out even when she was very young. Before she ever reached a movie set, Raquel was already shaping herself into a performer. She studied ballet for 10 years, training with the kind of discipline that most dancers start long before they even understand what career they want. The training paid off because her presence was strong, her posture controlled, and her confidence noticeable. By her teens, Raquel began participating in beauty competitions. She won the titles of Miss La Jolla and Miss San Diego, achievements that put her in the Miss California pageant. These were small beginnings, but they opened doors and pushed her closer to the entertainment world. Even then, photographers gravitated toward her because she held attention in ways pageant judges remembered long after the events were over. After high school, she attended San Diego State College and majored in theater arts. Acting classes gave her a place to experiment, fail, try again, and sharpen the instincts that later shaped her career. She worked in local productions and practiced scenes in small workshops long before she found her way onto a real film set. Her big break came in 1966 with Fantastic Voyage, where she played a scientist's assistant shrunk inside a submarine. The film showed the world her beauty, but it also introduced her to audiences as someone who could hold her own on screen. That same year, another role changed her life even more. 1,000,000 Years BC. This was the film that placed her in the now iconic fur bikini, a costume that turned her into a global attraction symbol. The image became one of the most famous promotional photos of the 20th century. It appeared on posters, billboards, and magazine covers around the world. People who had never even seen the movie recognized the picture instantly. Hollywood leaned into the image, and Raquel suddenly found herself photographed everywhere. She became one of the most photographed women of the 1960s and 70s. Her look, her style, and her confidence, all of it fueled her popularity. But the attention wasn't limited to glamour. Directors soon realized she could do more than pose. She had timing, presence, and a seriousness that didn't always appear in early publicity shots. That's what made her work in The Three Musketeers in 1973 so important. She played Constance Bonacieux, a role that balanced comedy and charm in a way audiences loved. The performance won her a Golden Globe for Best Motion Picture Actress in a musical or comedy. It was a clear message that Raquel wasn't just a poster pin-up. She could deliver award-winning work even while the industry kept selling her as a fantasy figure. Throughout the decades that followed, she continued expanding her career across film, television, and the stage. She also wrote books and launched a wig line, building a business that lasted for years. Slowly, she crafted the kind of career that blended commercial appeal with genuine acting ability, becoming an entertainer who could do almost anything the industry asked of her, and sometimes more. Unfortunately, this glamorous reputation also came with complications. Behind the posters and film roles were long stretches of tension with studios, co-stars, and directors who didn't always know how to work with someone who wanted more control over her image than Hollywood usually allowed. Throughout the late 60s and early 70s, Raquel earned a reputation for clashing with certain co-stars. One of the clearest examples came during the filming of 100 Rifles in 1969. She reportedly didn't enjoy working with Burt Reynolds, who had a very loose, improvisational style. Their personalities didn't blend well, and the friction grew enough that she reportedly refused to work with him again afterward. The tension wasn't explosive, but it was noticeable, and it fed into the early talk that she could be difficult on set. That label followed her for years. Some directors said she pushed back more than they expected. Others said she wanted too much control over how she looked on screen, how scenes were shot, and how her characters were portrayed. For Raquel, protecting her image wasn't vanity, it was survival. The industry constantly tried to place her in roles built entirely around her appearance, and she spent much of her career fighting to be seen as a performer first. But to directors who were used to actors accepting whatever they were given, her pushback created friction. Her personal life also drew heavy media coverage. Raquel married young, at just 18, to James Welch, and together they had 2 children. Sadly, the marriage fell apart by 1964, leaving her balancing auditions, modeling jobs, and work as a cocktail waitress while raising her kids. The tabloids loved following her relationships through the decades, especially as she entered more public marriages and divorces. In total, Raquel married 4 times, and every separation made its way into gossip columns. It wasn't the drama she wanted, but it became part of the public picture surrounding her. Her battles with studios grew even more intense in the 1980s. One of the most significant moments came when she was fired from the film Cannery Row and replaced with a younger actress. Raquel insisted she had been wrongfully dismissed and that the studios simply didn't want an older leading lady in the role. She took the studio to court, and after a long legal fight, she won. The jury awarded her $10.8 million, a rare victory that highlighted how the industry often treated actresses once they passed a certain age. This wasn't just a win for Raquel, it was finally proof that she had been fighting pressures others didn't always see. Another controversial part of her public image involved the roles she chose not to take. Even though Hollywood constantly marketed her as a glamorous figure, she turned down scenes she felt crossed personal boundaries. She openly refused full nudity in films, even when studios pushed for it. Directors sometimes complained that she turned down material that could have boosted a project's publicity. But Raquel held her line. She had no problem being seen as glamorous, but she refused to let studios push her farther than she was comfortable with. That decision earned her criticism from some producers and respect from many fans. Her disagreements with directors weren't limited to content. She frequently challenged how her characters were written. If she felt a role reduced a woman to a simplistic figure or lacked dignity, she said so. These conversations often became public, giving the impression that she was hard to handle, when in reality, she was simply unwilling to let the industry control every part of her identity. At a time when studios expected actresses to accept whatever was handed to them, Raquel pushed back, sometimes with calm conversations, sometimes with full-blown disputes, but always with a determination to define her own path. Raquel was determined to choose how she was seen, even if the industry didn't like it, and that determination shaped some of the most controversial moments in her career. One of those moments came from a scene that pushed boundaries not just for Raquel, but for Hollywood as a whole. A moment involving an interracial romantic scene that stirred up more headlines than the studio expected. The interracial love scene. In 1969, Raquel Welch stepped into one of the most talked-about projects of her early career, 100 Rifles. The film was directed by Tom Gries and adapted from Robert McLeod's novel, The Californio. Productions in that era often played things safe, but this one pushed boundaries before cameras even started rolling. The cast brought together Raquel as Sarita, a fiery Yaqui revolutionary, Jim Brown as Lidecker, an American lawman, and Burt Reynolds as Yaqui Joe, a thief with his own agenda. It was an unusual combination of personalities, styles, and backgrounds, and it gave the movie a tone unlike anything else at the time. Filming took place in Spain, where the landscape resembled the rugged terrain the story needed. The set buzzed with activity as the three leads moved between demanding stunt work and dialogue-driven scenes. For a production of its time, 100 Rifles came across as bold from the start, but no single moment earned more attention than one particular scene. In the middle of the film, Raquel's character and Jim Brown's character share a romantic encounter. Today, it plays as a brief, understated moment, filmed with far less intensity than many modern love scenes. But in 1969, it was groundbreaking. Hollywood hadn't seen many interracial romantic scenes between major stars, and the few that existed were often subtle or implied. This one wasn't loud or graphic, but it was clear enough to challenge the industry's unwritten rules. Jim Brown was already known as a trailblazer by then. After his NFL career, he moved into acting with surprising ease, playing strong, charismatic roles in films like The Dirty Dozen in 1967. He stood out not just because of his talent, but because Hollywood rarely placed black actors at the center of action movies. He broke through walls that had been there for decades, and the industry wasn't always ready for what that meant. So when 100 Rifles showed him opposite Raquel Welch, one of the biggest rising stars of the period, it was more than just a casting choice. It sent a message Hollywood hadn't sent before. Many theaters, especially in certain regions, were not used to showing a black male lead and a major white actress in an intimate moment on screen. Raquel approached the role with confidence, and Jim Brown handled the scene with the same steadiness that made him a standout in action roles. But what happened around the film is what turned the moment into something bigger. Promotional posters leaned into their chemistry, showing Raquel draped around Brown, placing the pairing directly in the public's view. It wasn't subtle or hidden in the shadows of the story. The marketing made it clear that the film wasn't shying away from what it had done. But the scene itself doesn't match the drama that followed it. It's brief and quiet, with Raquel and Brown sharing a moment that comes naturally from their characters' circumstances. But the simplicity may have been what made it so striking. Instead of presenting the moment as something forbidden or explosive, the film treated it as a normal part of the story, which in 1969 was almost unheard of. Raquel later acknowledged that she knew the scene would get attention, but she didn't expect the level of discussion it eventually created. Jim Brown was used to breaking ground, but even he noted years later that the moment sparked conversations far beyond the film's actual content. For him, the scene was simply part of the job. For Raquel, it was another unusual chapter in a career filled with unexpected moments. But what people talk about now isn't just the historical importance. Over the years, clips of the scene have resurfaced online, and new viewers offer a very different reaction. In fact, many of them don't believe the moment is real at all. They question how it was filmed, what exactly happened, and why the scene looks different from the rest of the movie. Why nobody believed it was real. When the interracial love scene from 100 Rifles reached theaters in 1969, the reaction was immediate and divided. In some places, audiences treated it like a bold step forward. But in many parts of the United States, especially across the South, the moment landed like a shockwave. Interracial relationships were still considered taboo in those regions, and the idea of seeing a major white actress and a black leading man share an intimate moment on a movie screen felt almost unthinkable to many viewers at the time. But the pushback didn't stay quiet or limited to opinions. Certain theaters flat out refused to show the movie. Others edited the scene before screening it, cutting down the moment, or removing it entirely. Even newspapers commented on it, focusing more on the controversy than on the story of the film itself. Raquel Welch stood by the scene from the beginning. She said it was necessary for her character, Sarita, a revolutionary, fighting for her people. She insisted that the moment wasn't about shock value, but about showing passion, commitment, and connection between two characters who were in the middle of a dangerous and chaotic world. She didn't distance herself from it or downplay its meaning. She defended it openly, even when the criticism grew louder. But as the movie spread across the country, something strange happened. People began questioning whether Raquel had actually filmed the scene herself. Some viewers insisted it had to be a body double. Others suggested the moment was staged with clever camera angles or shot with trick lighting to hide who was involved. The theories grew, partly because audiences weren't used to seeing a major actress take part in something so bold on screen. The timing added to the confusion. Only a year earlier, the old Hays Code, the set of strict Hollywood rules that controlled what could appear on screen, had finally been dissolved. Under that system, interracial intimacy was heavily restricted. Even simple suggestions of it could be blocked or censored. With the Hays Code gone, the industry entered what became known as the New Hollywood Era, where filmmakers explored stronger themes, took more risks, and pushed the boundaries that had held them back for decades. But audiences were still adjusting. For many, the idea that a scene like this could suddenly appear in a mainstream movie didn't feel real. They had spent years watching Hollywood avoid the topic, so when 100 Rifles showed something new, viewers assumed it had to be edited, staged, or created in a way that kept the actors at a distance. Raquel eventually addressed the speculation directly. She explained that she had filmed the scene herself, with no body double and no camera tricks. The moment was exactly what it looked like. She believed in the character, she believed in the story, and she believed the scene belonged in the film. Her response shut down one rumor, but it didn't erase the disbelief some viewers still held. By the time the film reached its full audience, the controversy had taken on a life of its own. Decades later, that disbelief became part of the movie's legacy. As the film gained a cult following, the scene continued to resurface, especially in discussions about early examples of Hollywood challenging racial boundaries. New generations watched it without understanding the cultural climate of 1969, and each time it appeared online, the same reactions returned. People questioning whether it was authentic, how it was filmed, and why it looked so unusual compared to the rest of the movie. This scene symbolized a rare moment when Hollywood stepped outside its comfort zone, placing two major stars in a situation that tested the limits of what the industry was willing to show. The disbelief around it only grew the film's reputation, helping 100 Rifles become a cult classic, not because of its plot, but because of the risks it took and the reactions that followed. Surprisingly, those reactions weren't limited to that single moment. The film also featured a far more controversial scene that viewers still debate today. A chaotic soldier ambush scene that raised even more questions about how far the production actually went. The soldier's ambush scene. Among all the bold moments in 100 Rifles, there was one scene that pushed audiences even further than the interracial romance: the soldier's ambush scene, a sequence that caught viewers off guard from the moment it appeared on screen. Raquel Welch's character, Sarita, is shown bathing when a group of soldiers try to ambush her, turning an intimate moment into a burst of chaos. The scene moved quickly from calm to danger, and the shift made it one of the most memorable moments in the movie. It wasn't graphic, and it definitely wasn't filmed for shock value, but there was an intensity to the way it played out. Sarita was supposedly caught in a moment of vulnerability, yet she fights back with force, refusing to surrender easily. The combination of fear and defiance made the scene stand out immediately. Audiences didn't expect such a direct, raw moment from a film released in 1969, especially one starring Raquel Welch, whose image was usually controlled and polished. Audiences also struggled to believe the ambush scene, because even though Raquel was fully covered, the moment showed her in soaked clothing, a level of intensity people weren't used to seeing directed at a woman on screen at the time. The reaction in theaters was strong. Some viewers were surprised by how sudden the ambush was. Others questioned whether the studio had softened parts of the scene to make it more acceptable for wide release. A few even suggested that parts of it had been censored or edited differently in certain regions, especially since the film had already stirred controversy for other reasons. The ambush didn't look like the kind of moment Hollywood typically approved at the time, and that alone sparked rumors about how it was filmed. Raquel Welch addressed the scene openly, explaining that she wanted it to feel real. She insisted on authenticity throughout the shoot, even when the moment required her to show vulnerability on screen. Her determination to ground the moment in something honest gave the ambush a kind of energy that made it stick with audiences decades later. Behind the camera, things were sometimes tense. The ambush scene was filmed during a period when Welch clashed with Burt Reynolds, and those tensions were close to the surface. That friction may have contributed to the sharpness of the performances, especially in moments when the characters were supposed to feel edgy and unsettled. The ambush wasn't just about surprise or suspense. It tied into the film's broader themes of rebellion, danger, and the constant threat hanging over Sarita's mission. 100 Rifles mixed political conflict with intense action and personal moments, creating a tone that was much heavier than audiences expected from a mainstream film featuring 3 major stars. The blend of intimacy, violence, and social commentary made the entire movie feel unpredictable, and scenes like this reminded viewers how quickly the stakes could change. Because the film already carried controversy from the interracial love scene, the ambush became part of the wider conversation around how far 100 Rifles was willing to go. Some critics argued the film pushed boundaries for attention. Others believed the risks it took made it stand out from the safer studio productions of the time. Over time, the moment became one of the scenes that people revisited when discussing Raquel Welch's boldest roles. It showed her taking on material that required both physical and emotional commitment. As the film moved into cult status, clips of the ambush resurfaced online, just like the interracial love scene. And every time it did, the same questions reappeared. How much was planned? How much was improvised? And why did Raquel commit so fiercely to a moment that could have easily been softened or simplified? And while the movie pushed Raquel into some of the strongest, riskiest moments she ever filmed, it also marked the beginning of a different chapter, one filled with struggles she rarely spoke about, challenges that tested her far beyond the set, and a final chapter that surprised many who had followed her for decades. A life marked by struggles. Raquel Welch's career looked effortless from the outside, but the path behind the glamour was filled with battles most people never saw. From her earliest days in Hollywood, she carried a label the industry refused to let go of. Directors and studios were quick to cast her for her beauty, but slow to trust her with serious roles. As her fame grew, so did her fight against typecasting. She wanted to be seen as a full performer, not just a poster image from the 1960s. Every step forward came with pushback, and she knew she had to earn the roles she wanted rather than wait for them to be offered. But the challenges didn't stop there. Hollywood's treatment of actresses was harsh, especially as they aged, and Raquel felt those pressures early. By the time she entered her 40s, the industry had already begun shifting its focus elsewhere. She faced sexism from producers who favored younger, less experienced actresses, even when she had the skill and history to carry major films. Auditions became tougher. Offers slowed down. The same system that once promoted her endlessly now hesitated to trust her with the variety of roles she wanted. Balancing her career with motherhood also added another layer of stress. After her first divorce in 1964, she carried the responsibility of raising her children while chasing opportunities in an industry that offered no guarantees. She worked late nights, took modeling and hosting jobs, and accepted any role that moved her closer to her goals. The struggle to keep her career afloat while supporting her family wasn't something she spoke about often, but it shaped much of her determination. As the years went on, Raquel became more open about the pressures she felt as a public figure. She often mentioned her fear of aging in Hollywood and how the industry placed heavy expectations on actresses to stay youthful forever. She knew the spotlight came with scrutiny, appearance, weight, and wardrobe. Even the smallest change sparked attention. She spoke honestly about how difficult it was to maintain confidence while navigating those demands. Even with her natural poise, the pressure was always present. Raquel didn't rely solely on acting to define her life. She built business ventures that showed a different side of her resilience. One of her most successful projects was her wig line, which became popular for its wide range of styles and high quality. For many people, the business may have seemed like a small side project, but it grew into a major part of her brand. It proved she could build something sustainable outside of film and television that lasted through changing trends and shifting audiences. Even as Hollywood evolved, Raquel kept working. She appeared in television comedies, guest roles, and cameo performances that gave her a new kind of visibility. Her brief appearance on Seinfeld became a fan favorite, showing her comedic timing and willingness to have fun with her image. In Legally Blonde, she played a supporting role that connected her with a whole new generation of viewers. These appearances kept her relevant while giving her room to step outside the expectations of her earlier career. Over the decades, Raquel received constant recognition for her influence. She became one of the long-standing icons of Hollywood's classic era, cited in fashion, pop culture, and entertainment history. Her style, from the fur bikini era to her polished red carpet looks, continued to inspire designers, photographers, and young performers. She built a legacy through the disciplined, determined, and often misunderstood way she carried herself. In her later years, Raquel stepped away from the public eye more noticeably. Fans assumed she had chosen a quiet retirement, but what the world didn't know was that she was coping with serious health challenges. After her death, her family revealed that she had been living with Alzheimer's disease, something she kept private, sharing it only with those closest to her. The news finally explained her absence and painted a clearer picture of why she had slowly faded from public events. Raquel Welch died on February 15, 2023, at the age of 82. The cause was cardiac arrest, and her death certificate confirmed that Alzheimer's disease had played a significant role in her declining health. She was cremated shortly after her passing, leaving behind a career that stretched across film, television, business, and popular culture. Raquel broke taboos that Hollywood wasn't ready for, challenged the assumptions placed on her, and pushed for roles that respected both the character and the performer. She redefined what feminine strength looked like on screen at a time when few actresses had the freedom to do so. And she carved out a place in movie history that still stands today. But what do you think? Were these Raquel Welch scenes too controversial for their time? Drop your answers in the comment section below. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to click on the next video on your screen, like this video, and subscribe to our channel for more updates.